What the fuck's going on there? Did yours sound cooked?
Yep, very quiet. Up and down and quiet. And G'day, welcome to the Best of Rest podcast. Oh, audio's back in, I think. I don't know.
I don't know.
What's going on here?
It sounded full rooted for a second.
Are we in or not?
Are we going to roll with it, or are we just going to run back and...
Righto. Yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, I think we've got it sorted.
Yeah, I've had a couple of difficulties on our end, not hearing volume and mic cutting out, but I think we're all good.
I think the end product should be all right, apart from our waffling at the start.
Yeah, we had a bit of a peak there as well. Not sure how that volume will soften out, but we'll see.
It's all part and parcel of being a professional organisation, mate.
That's why we're the best of the rest.
Right. Well, what are we chatting about?
So we're a little bit late to the scene, as we touched on a previous episode. You couldn't put enough fuel in the car, so you didn't make it here for the recording.
I don't think I'm ever going to hear the end of that one.
No. Two tanks set up and still can't get enough fuel to make it here.
Land Cruiser life.
But anyway, we're a bit late, but we're touching on Tsunoda and Lawson being swapped in the Red Bull and V-Carb seats.
After 2 goddamn races.
Yeah. Absolute ludicrousy.
Insane.
Like, I'm actually absolutely gobsmacked that they can only give Lawson, he's still essentially a rookie. Has had like 2 back ends of a season. So even the races that he has done, he hasn't raced in Australia, hasn't raced in China. The one that he is familiar with is Japan. They don't even give it to him.
I think there's a lot going on there behind the scenes. I've heard Honda were to pay Red Bull $20 million if they put Yuki in before the Japanese Grand Prix.
Yeah, I did hear some high numbers like that bounced around.
I've also heard some juicy details about Horner apparently not wanting Lawson or Tsunoda when they were deciding on a second driver late last year, but wanting Colapinto, but Helmut Marko wanting to get someone from the driver academy, and now we're in this situation. Yeah, it's just, oh man, it's a shit show.
It just baffles me because if it was a driver that you backed, like you legitimately had faith in them, you'd be protecting them and defending them and saying, nah, they're great, they just need time. This just shows that Red Bull and associates obviously never had any faith in Lawson. Otherwise, they'd be backing him in. And I don't know why they didn't. Like, yes, I thought potentially that they probably should have gone with Tsunoda. But Lawson is an incredibly talented driver and he needs more time. Like, this is just baffling. I'm pleased that he's been given still a seat in V-Carb, but I think it's just shit, really.
I think unless someone picks him up outside of Red Bull, his days in Formula 1 are numbered. You hear Horner going on about, we're still supporting. We want to put him in the RB to give him time to develop and rah. You can almost see the exact same quotes being repeated from when, I don't recall what year, but Kvyat was dropped from the main team to the second team. Mm. They more or less said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
See you, mate. Go on. Kicked him out of the sport. No one else picked him up. That was it.
Yeah.
And he was a good driver too.
Yeah.
But obviously Verstappen comes through at the time. It's a little bit of a different situation. But yeah, you're not going to see Lawson in that top team again. And yeah, has he shown enough that another team may pick him up, or have they just completely burnt his F1 career by throwing him in the car? Australia was completely wet, which is not a fair setup for a guy that hasn't driven a track and it's wet and you've got to try and perform with a car that's on the nose. Mm. And then you go to round 2 in China and again, sprint weekend, he's got 1 practice session thrown into competitive sessions. That's pretty rough.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, he knows Japan, send him into Japan, 3 practice sessions. Then if he was to perform like shit, you could probably go, okay, it's probably going a little bit more that way. But obviously there was bigger things at play, money on the line, get Yuki in the seat. Unless Lawson was just so bad, they looked at the data behind the scenes and it was just too far gone.
I don't know. Like, my thoughts were a minimum of six races, and that would have been like ruthless. But then 2, like, just it actually pisses me off. Like, this is disgusting by Red Bull, really. And it also annoys me. Like, I never really thought too much about this sister team kind of thing. They're always relatively separate entities, but when they can do shit like this, you know, they're not voiding any contracts because it's all still Red Bull. They can just switch a driver here, there, and anywhere, and no one can complain. It's bullshit, really. It's not good for the sport. It's terrible for drivers' careers and reputations and
confidence.
No, I just hate it. I hate everything about it.
Well, you even take a step back from the drivers that are currently in those seats. The academy guys come through. Stepping into Formula One, there's high pressure regardless of who you're racing for. But if you're in a Red Bull, you know all of a sudden that if you don't perform on that race, you don't even get half a season to get used to that car to then show what you've got. So then that extra level of pressure, I feel like it doesn't necessarily bring the best out in people. You're just in a cutthroat industry, and then you're in a cutthroat team within a cutthroat industry that if, you know, you don't bring enough sponsorship like Perez does or did, where he got time because there was a lot of money that he was bringing to the team. So, you know, you get more time, Perez. Lawson rocks up, doesn't necessarily have the massive sponsors that Perez has, and 2 races and you're out. And all you heard from Lawson is like, I could get used to this car, but it's just going to take time, and I don't have time. And you also hear, don't know whether it's true or not, but you hear that Lawson found out through the media. He didn't actually get directly contacted before the announcement was going around that Yuki was going to replace him. And if that is true, that's weak.
Yeah, that's piss poor. If they can't even get him into a room and sit him down and give him an explanation, you know, just change a couple of words on his contract or whatever, and yeah, off you go. Then that's just terrible.
Well, how hard is it to make a phone call?
Yeah. You know,
at least give him a phone call.
But it's just, it just does my head in. Like, they've obviously struggled with having 2 competitive drivers or even just 2 cars, like that second seat essentially, since it was Ricciardo and Verstappen. Like, they haven't found, it's not even like a good pairing. It's just either someone that can handle the car, or when they've put all their eggs in Max's basket, like the way that he either sets up the car, or maybe he can just find, like, he's just that good of a driver that he can just find every minuscule detail and 1,000th of a second in a car that he can take it to next levels. Like, I'd be very interested to see if, let's say, him and Lando, you know, they're filing first and second in the championship, and that's how they finished last year. If those 2 were to swap cars, so arguably can't, you know, essentially the 2 best drivers at the moment, if they were to swap cars, Max in a McLaren, Lando in the Red Bull, how each driver would perform.
I think Max would be flawless and Lando would struggle.
Yeah. Is it just that Max is just this absolute god tier driver that can just jump in any car and, you know, essentially take it to its maximum? Or is it that he just likes a car set up that, like, to that degree that no one else can essentially drive it?
I don't know if you saw on the weekend, they had a little AI clip. I think it was, what's his name? Ted. What's his last name?
Kravitz?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Kravitz.
So he was in the car with Jack Villeneuve, and they were talking about how that Red Bull's set up and rah, rah, rah. And they had like a little AI clip where taking a right-hand corner, like a 90-degree right-hand corner, how Max can handle that car.
Yeah.
So he's smooth on the input through the steering, but he can also catch the rear before it kicks out too far for any other driver coming through, because they don't know exactly the right amount of input to put in to turn that corner. They will oversteer, so the arse will kick out and they're more likely to spin. So Max can have the car on the limit and know exactly how to take that corner and get the maximum out of the car, where anyone else that's taking that corner doesn't have the confidence, so they can't push as hard, because if they do, they're not going to catch the rear, they'll spin out and drop it. So when you don't have that confidence, you can't push, so you're leaving lap time out there because you want to stay on the track. You don't want to just bin it.
Yeah.
So when you've set a car up like that, like, what's the end goal? Because you're not going to win constructors championships when you can only get one driver to get the most. Yeah, you might win the drivers or be at least competitive, but can you adapt the car to fit two people slightly differently? Is that possible, or is it the progression in the car has to be in Max's side of things? I don't know. It just seems out of whack in comparison to other teams.
Yeah, and I've heard people having different opinions on this as well. So, you keep Verstappen and the car the way it is, and just try and find someone, like almost anyone with a similar driving style, that can just pick up low end points. And, Max essentially almost winning every race, picking up major points, and try and have that deficit that they can be steady. Or are they almost better without Max, as, harsh as that sounds because he's reigning world champion? Are they better as a team without trying to set up a car, to be perfect for him, and set him more up like a team, not putting all the eggs in one basket? I don't really know where my viewpoint sits on that. I guess, their alliance sits with Verstappen and giving him the best possible car, and, to him, there's probably nothing wrong with it. So it's kind of hard for them to start to iron out where the problem lies. But once you've gone through so many drivers and almost essentially ruined their careers trying to find a teammate, you got to start to think that maybe it's not the drivers and it's probably the car.
And that's where it puts you in a tricky position, because you think one side of the garage, we're winning races. So you don't want to compromise that side to pick up the other side of the garage that can't even put in the points, because then you might have two, I don't know, mid-point sort of finishes instead of a bloke that's winning races. But then you can't win constructors. So you're in sort of a lose-lose regardless of what you do. And then if you also started tailoring the car so it wasn't fully, Max didn't have full control, well, it's not going to take much for another team to go, oh, Max, here's a contract. Come race with us. Whether it's Aston Martin, come race for us. We got Adrian Newey. He designed the car. He knows your driving strengths. We'll set it up for how you want it. You'll win championships. So, yeah, how do you go about that? I don't know. But the chewing up second drivers is just not the way to go about it.
No, and I guess kind of an analogy of that they've been trying to kind of rack up. I think I've got a good one for you.
Yeah, hit me with it.
And it's not going to be a stupid freezer one like normal. Oh, well, I don't think it is.
Some of those are rogue.
Yeah.
I'll be the judge.
So you've got your car, right? We'll go with your cruiser because, well, maybe not because you don't know how to put fuel in it. But we've got your cruiser,
Shots.
right? And you blow a fuse. So you go and you replace that fuse. Yep, looks all great. Then you blow it again. Oh, shit. Another dodgy fuse. I'll go and replace it again, blows again. You start to think maybe there's some dodgy wiring going on, don't you? Maybe it's the car. It's not the fuse. It's not in, F1 terms, it's not the driver. Maybe it's the car. So I think Red Bull really need to do a deep dive, and maybe they are, but if they're not, they really need to have a hard look at themselves in the mirror and actually dive through this car, because you see in Drive to Survive when Horner and Toto were going toe-to-toe with each other like 3-4 years ago when Perez was, pretty early on in the seat, saying that, like, Toto was saying you've got Perez saying your car's fucked. And, Horner's going, no, he's not. Well, yeah, apparently it came out that Perez was reporting that, there was problems with the car, and they admitted they were essentially ignoring him because Verstappen's winning all these races.
And I guess this is where you've got, if you want to compare McLaren to Red Bull, you've got a team in McLaren with two number one drivers that are both competing at the front, which is great for constructors. Not necessarily great for the drivers' championship because you've got two blokes taking points off of each other. And then you've got Red Bull on the other side of things where they've only got one driver that's competing for the drivers, but you're not going to win in constructors unless you've got a dominant year, like 23, was it, where they won both because Max won the drivers' championship by so much that he single-handedly won the constructors, more or less. So which way do you go about it? And do you not... obviously, it's hard because we're looking from the outside in. But do you not stress test these drivers and use all the testing of older cars that you can to figure out whether they can handle a car that's as fronty as this Red Bull? Why throw Lawson in to the furnace and then realise that, oh shit, this really doesn't suit the way he drives and we don't have the time for him to adapt? Because that's so embarrassing, first and foremost, because he was so stoked to be in that Red Bull seat. In the interviews you saw him do before the season and before his first race, so stoked. And then you could just see in such a short period of time, he was a shell of the man that he was. And
the kind of most embarrassing thing for Lawson, and I'm not saying this in any disrespect, but leading up to, people were talking about driving styles and if his driving style would suit Max's and stuff like that. And Lawson commented that although he thinks it kind of would, he doesn't necessarily believe in driving styles because these 20 drivers are literally the best 20 in the world. Like, they're professionals. They've got to learn to adapt to the car and give feedback and maximize it and do what they can. And then he jumps into this, championship winning car, drivers' championship, with a teammate that's 4-time reigning world champion, and he puts it 20th and his teammates on the front row. Like, it is embarrassing, but I feel sorry for him, and I don't believe that's his true talent anyway.
It's a big kick in the guts to Lawson. Now on the other side of things, Tsunoda, the promotion is almost not as clear cut as that because it's a lot of pressure that comes with this. But at the same time, he's almost in a win-win situation. He either doesn't perform and he can't go any worse than what Liam has in those first two races. And the people go, it's the car. It's the car. The car's cooked. Or he turns around and his first half a dozen races, he puts in some solid performances, scores some points, and people go, Tsunoda's the GOAT. Look at him go. He's a beast. He's fixed that problem. Red Bull are geniuses.
Yeah, he's either going to look like a hero or it wasn't his fault to start with. And with some of the results he was pulling in the first two races of the season, well, I know he didn't necessarily finish there, but,
good on track.
Yeah. Top 5 and top 6 and whatnot, that it'd be surprising to see him running down the bottom, and his results from last year as well anyway, but where you've got Tsunoda just performing so well, and then if he jumps into the Red Bull and doesn't do so well, then people are just going to go, it's definitely the car. We've got all the evidence now. Yeah, like you said, if he jumps in and goes well or even keeps performing where he was in the V-carb, then they're just going to say that Tsunoda's elite. Absolute fucking GOAT, mate. Which I think he is anyway. I do think he's a very talented driver, so
rate him.
I would like to see him do well, but I don't like that it's at the expense of Lawson. And not that he's replaced Lawson, but literally they have not given Lawson a chance.
Just a shit show. It's, well, you've heard them say that, Tsunoda's got the rest of the year. Does he?
Well, yeah.
Or do they go, see you, mate. Get Hadjar in here and they probably wouldn't even demote Yuki. They probably promote someone else and get rid of you. Like, you don't know what they're going to do. And that Helmut Marko just makes the stupidest decisions. This may not have worked, but it feels like should they have kept Perez around or promoted Daniel because they know that Daniel could drive a car that was more in that Max style, run him this year, let Tsunoda and Lawson battle it out in the RBs, both get another year of experience, see who's the better driver, and then promote them the year after. I don't know.
Yeah, well then, if Tsunoda is going bad with how cutthroat Red Bull have been, are they going to look at putting Hadjar in? Like, there's been all the memes and jokes that, you know, every 2 races they're going to swap drivers and go through, you know, Hadjar and Arvid Lindblad in the driver program. I think he's in F2 at the moment.
I'd hate to see Hadjar get promoted this year because his first few races, he's shown a lot. But you don't want him to be crushed.
And that's what it's been doing to all the drivers, whether they've been, you know, a fresh or whether they've been experienced. It's literally ruining drivers' careers.
What would happen if Colapinto did get signed? Like, would he be able to drive a car like that? Or
that's the question too, isn't it? And you saw some of the crashes he was having in the Williams.
Yeah. So on a car that's really twitchy, and you've either got to be perfect with it or, you know, you're going to bin it. I don't know. Anyway, that's our rant on the Lawson-Tsunoda situation. We'll see how it pans out as the year goes on.
That is our rant, and I know we focus a lot more on the negative side of Lawson, but just want to reiterate big congratulations to Tsunoda to get that promotion, and I really do hope that he does well. But yeah, just kind of pissed off with Red Bull with the way they've gone about things, to be honest.
And the Lawson thing is probably, it's almost good for him before he completely got crushed and he had zero confidence in, you know, everything else that goes along with the pressure side of the sport, you know, the between the ears sort of stuff. I think he got out of there before it maybe really destroyed him, and hopefully Lawson can put together a good season in the RB and prove that he is valuable out there, deserves a spot on the grid.
Yeah, and I've heard people calling him arrogant as well, but when I saw him being welcomed back to VCARB, like, it was the most genuine, thankful person that I've seen was, you know, Lawson thanking them for welcoming him back. And I actually think he's a top bloke. Like, obviously I don't really know him and haven't seen too much, but just the way he conducts himself, and I think he's genuine.
He's never struck me as arrogant. He's definitely confident in his abilities, but not to the point where I wouldn't say he's arrogant. It's just you've got to back yourself.
Yeah, and you're 1 in 20. If you don't back yourself, then
no one else is going to do it.
No, you're going to be out.
And that's part of it. Like, you're racing a car, and yes, there's a lot of skill that goes in it, but you've got to be mentally tough. You've got to know that you've got what it takes. You can't be like, oh no, Lewis Hamilton's behind me. You know, he's the best driver. I've got to let him pass. Like, no, you've got to be, no, I'm the man out there. I can do this. Good luck.
Yeah, well, imagine just in, you know, our professions now as it is, if you knew that you were in the top 20 of your profession, you'd be strutting around like your shit don't stink. Like, you know, wouldn't you? Like, they're publicised, they're, you know, multimillionaires or whatever. They're raking it in. They're extremely talented. They've got people like
Stroll's questionable.
Well, he's still there. They're,
Thanks,
you know,
Dad.
A lot of household names. Can't get through one fucking episode without you roasting Stroll, can we?
Fuck Stroll.
Mate, we're on Tsunoda and Lawson. Jesus.
I'll wait till the next pod to get into him.
Yeah, you know, they're extremely talented. They're in the top 20. So even if they're 20th, you know, if I was 20th best in my profession, I'd be feeling pretty good.
Yeah, true. That's our waffle on them. We'll see how it pans out. Time to box the pod.
Yeah, best of luck to both of them. Hope they do well. Righto, let's retire this episode and get the out of here. Hit like, share, follow, share it with another F1 fan, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah, don't forget those 5 stars.
Yeah, give them to us.
Gotcha.
Bye.
Look at this. This is not a dog. This is a piece of shit.